Well, that was a very nice introduction. Thank you. I want to say I'm very grateful to Anthony for arranging this program. This idea of his of bringing psychology to the public, to me, is the most important thing that we as psychologists can do. The volume of information is so great, and the quality of information has improved so markedly over time that there's a lot to share. And we have a relatively short time this evening, but I hope to give you a lot of good perspective about things that matter the most in learning to manage depression. So let me say I will be speaking for roughly 45 minutes or so, and then I will open it up to questions. Let me start with a story and get you thinking about this topic. When I was a young psychologist back in 1829, my first job was working in a psychiatric facility, and I was the admissions person. It was my job to admit new patients to the unit. Now, this is a locked facility. People aren't getting locked up because they're doing well. They're not really doing very well at all. And so my job was to interview them, find out why they were there, what was going on in their lives, what the expectation was for their hospitalization, what medications they were on, what the treatment plan was, all those kinds of things. Now, I'm young, I'm inexperienced, and for me to have the opportunity to interview many hundreds of people in a relatively short period of time turned out to be pivotal in all the things I'm going to talk to you about tonight. I would interview people who had been through the worst experiences that you can imagine. People who had been raped, tortured, mutilated. People who had fled their homelands literally with the bullets whizzing past their head. People who lost their entire family in one fell swoop in a plane crash or a car crash. People who had suffered the worst adversities you can possibly imagine. And when I would interview these people, it was easy to appreciate why they were broken, why they were so despairing, why they had given up on life. That was, of course, an interesting lesson, to say the least. The compassion, the empathy was very easy. But what fascinated me clinically, that has every bit of relevance to what we're going to talk about tonight, is when I interviewed people who had been through these horrific experiences, people who probably should have been depressed, but they weren't. And I wanted to know, why not? What is it about the way that these people are coping that somehow serves to insulate them against depression? So it gave rise to the 4 research questions that have guided my career now for more than 40 years. Think about your answers to these questions, because we're going to talk about them. The first question was, are there skills that people have that serve to insulate them? Very interesting. When you ask people directly, gee, anybody who had been through your circumstances would be depressed, you're not, why not? And people would give me these very insightful answers like, I don't know. Or they would say, well, I guess it's just luck of the draw, or I guess it's good genetics. But they couldn't really give me any insight into that. They're just living it. They're just being who they are, doing what they're doing. So as a young researcher, interviewing people and asking a million questions, slight exaggeration, and you find out that they like murder mysteries, and they like taking walks in the park, and they like playing with their kids and grandkids, and they like ice cream, and they like all kinds of things, and there I am trying to figure out, so what is it? Well, we've answered that question now. It's the ice cream. If only it were that simple. So starting to identify what patterns are present in the way this person thinks about things, in the way they define problems, in the way that they define their relationships, what are they doing in there? And what emerged from that was, with great clarity, were certain patterns of self-organization. Keep that phrase in mind, patterns of self-organization. So then the question became, okay, if I think I have a handle on what's going on with these folks, what we can learn from them, it leads to the second question. Can we say that these skills that these people have are in fact learnable? Are they teachable? Isn't this what the purpose of therapy is to help people acquire these skills that are not intuitive for them, that are intuitive for these other people? Then the third question became the salient research question. Can we prove scientifically, empirically, that when people are taught these particular skills, that it makes a difference, that it reduces their level of depression, reduces the frequency of depression, reduces their vulnerability to relapses, reduces the impact on the people around them? This is one of the things about depression. It doesn't just affect the individual sufferer. One of my recent books is called Depression is Contagious, and not in a viral sense, not in a bacterial sense, but in a social sense. What is it about depression that is so easily transmitted to kids of depressed parents? If you're the child of a depressed parent, your likelihood of suffering depression is 3 to 6 times greater than if you are the child of a non-depressed parent. Just having a depressed parent is a massive risk factor, not a small one, a big one. So can we prove that by people acquiring and developing skills that it really makes a difference? And then the fourth question has to do with prevention. Now, bear in mind, I'm asking these questions more than 40 years ago when we didn't have good antidepressant medications. We had medications that weren't particularly effective, and people didn't want to take them. They had annoying little side effects like death. And so, all in the span of 40 years, all of those things have changed. We have better medications. We have far better psychotherapies, a far better insight into what depression is, who's vulnerable. And I can tell you, the more that we understand the social aspect of depression, the more confidently I can say to you, there will never be a drug that cures depression any more than there will be a drug that cures racism or poverty. Looking at it through the lens of biology is an exceptionally limited perspective. Why I made a point of showing you the slide that shows you the biological factors, psychological factors, social factors. Now, it's not that I am against antidepressants. You know, part of writing for Encyclopedia Britannica is I can't just say it because it's my opinion. Where's the evidence for it? Antidepressant doesn't count as action. So the ability to be able to convert rumination to action. And when we look at the things that people ruminate about, it's almost invariably about relationships. And probably number 2 is school and work-related issues. But relationships are the most prominent. And many of the relationships, of course, are relationships from the past. This is one of the factors of depression. Every problem has a structure. Every problem, every diagnostic label has components. One of the components of depression is what's called a past orientation. People come in and they say, my past controls me. It's because of these traumas in my past. It's because of these things my parents did. It's because of these things that happened to me when I was a kid. And they don't just ruin for so many is that they have unrealistic expectations. They don't know they have unrealistic expectations, so they're always walking around hurt and disappointed. I swear to God, not guaranteed pathway into feeling lousy, comparing yourself to other people, particularly when you don't have any information. You can't look at a picture and say that that's this person's life. That's global thinking. Don't catastrophize. It helps to understand the probabilities. Don't leave important things unsaid or unresolved. Closure counts for a lot. Don't analyze too deeply. Move on. Don't ignore reality. Get the facts. Don't ignore your own needs. Self-care is not the same as being selfish. You're the only one who can manage yourself. And here's a key point. No mood expert that I know of would ever talk about curing depression. Keep this point from this lecture. The goal is not to cure depression. The goal is to learn how to manage your moods. That phrase, manage your moods. You don't exercise once and now you're done with the exercise thing. You don't discipline your kid once and now you're done with the parenting thing. You don't make a bank deposit once and now you're done with the banking thing. These are things you have to manage every day of your life. And managing your mood requires the skills. Psychologists call it self-regulation. But the simple phrase, managing your mood, counts. It's what I'm really speaking about. It helps to have a realistic expectation. Who gets depressed? Everybody. Everybody's vulnerable. If you are capable of moods, you're capable of mood disorders. Learning how to manage that aspect of yourself is so critically important. Don't give up or be passive. Try again, but do something different. Don't isolate. Find good people to be with. And don't leave time unstructured. There is so much more I could say.
Watch this video. Like this video. Subscribe to this channel to watch many more videos like these of great personalities. Share this video with your friends to subscribe to this channel.